Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's a beautiful late spring day here, a bit overcast, but I don't mind. A little bit hot, but that's all right too. I have a few things to show you today. I put some more of my summer edibles in the ground. I want to give you an update on how Bren's Blooms, my new business, is going. I cut some beautiful flowers this week. I'll show you all of them. Plus, something I don't think I've talked about here before on my channel. I'm just quickly going to show you how to propagate a tomato plant to give you some more plants. So please just sit back, relax for a few minutes, and let's get into it now. I just noticed this in the background, my little cart. Oh my goodness. Maybe it's time to get a new one for Christmas. It's looking pretty rusty. We're due some rain this afternoon, which I'm actually looking forward to because it means I won't have to hand water this garden tomorrow. This is the first week in months that I've had to start hand watering again, and oh my goodness, I forgot how time consuming it is. If I want to stop these beds from drying out so fast, I really need to cover the top layer with some of this sugarcane mulch, which I have started to do here and there. But the thing is, these bags of sugarcane mulch can add up. They're around $15–16. I believe they cover around 10 cubic meters, but you know, my garden's pretty large and this is only one area that I need to do. Do any of you know a cheaper alternative to sugarcane mulch that works well? I had a poke around the cauliflower plants and I discovered that there is a bit of a head forming in here. See all these leaves protecting it, but look how beautiful and white does that look. I can't wait to eat it. Speaking of eating brassicas, I think we are getting to the time where I need to harvest this broccoli. I'll give it another couple of days and I'm going to chop this off. I will show you next week how that went. I may do a garden harvest too during the week. I still need to pull out the celery and the silver beet. Over here, this celery is, oh no, silver beet is going to seed, and the celery over here has got flowers on it. So definitely time to come out, although I could leave one of each in and save some seeds from them. The chickens this week wrecked this bed of the spider flowers and they're currently in this one where I have a couple of chili plants. There was one in there but it's gone now. They dug it up. Oh, and look what else is gone. One of the eggplants too. I just want to say that I completely don't blame them. It's my fault because I still didn't get around to protecting those beds, you know, putting sticks in, and this is the consequence. Ugh, okay. Every time I walk around this garden I hear rustling. I'm so paranoid about snakes. At least I have my boots on to protect myself. I got some more of the summer crops in. So last week I showed you these 3 squash and zucchini plants. Over here beside them I popped in 3 cucumber plants. You may notice with the 3 of these, they're not in line with the other plants, and that is because I thought what I would do with them is actually grow them up a trellis. So rather than them filling out this whole space, I'll grow them vertically, which means I'll have a bit more room over here to put something else in the ground. The 3 of them are looking a little bit droopy. I think they need a bit more water. One little tip when you're watering some plants, I know myself when I was a beginner gardener, you get the hose and you think, oh, the soil is looking nice and wet. I've done my job, and it could be a bit tricky at the start to kind of gauge how long you need to put the hose on here before the plant gets a good drenching. So what you can do, well, you might make a little clearing when you have your gloves on in case there's spiders, but if you poke a little hole in here, put your finger in, you will be able to see how deep, or feel how deep that water has penetrated into the soil, because it can be very deceiving when you, as I said, are a beginner and you're hosing and it just looks lovely and wet, but it's really not. So that's a little tip I did when I first started, just to give me a better idea, make sure I'm watering my plants correctly. Speaking of vining plants, I was given these little sugar pumpkin seedlings by my friend Carol this week. I'm excited to get them into the ground. They are quite small in size, so I'll be able to grow them up a trellis as well. And I was thinking in autumn time I can hollow them out and use them as like a type of vase for flower arrangements. I had a really nice selection of cut flowers to pick this week for the bouquets. Do you see who I've just spotted? Do you see Snowflake? I told you that's her favourite spot, over here with the snapdragons. She's having a dust bath. I think she'd appreciate a bit of privacy, so I'm going to leave her there. And let's take a look at the cut flowers I picked here from my cottage garden and the arrangements I put together, which I dropped off this morning to Tarmore Garden Centre in Bargo. Here are 2 buckets of fresh flowers that I picked early Thursday morning. It's best to pick cut flowers just after the sun comes up, as this is the time that they are most hydrated. This week's harvest includes the Spirea japonica blooms. It's a perennial shrub that I have growing out in my front garden. Here are some apricot status, which can be used in fresh bouquets, but it also makes for a great dried flower. I've got a big bunch of snapdragons, so many this week, a rainbow of colours. They add a spike element to arrangements and they're relatively easy to grow. The tricky part, well, at least in my opinion, I think, is when you're sowing them, because the seeds are teeny tiny. I find myself drawn to these darker shades. But I have to start thinking about my customers, and I know in springtime people prefer the pastel, you know, the lighter colours, so I need to keep that in mind when I'm selecting varieties for next year. They're just so pretty. For the foliage this week I used Dusty Miller. The leaves do tend to wilt for the first few hours after I've picked them, but by the next day they are looking perky again. For the second foliage I've used this pelargonium, which always reminds me of my childhood because we had so much of it growing up in our garden. Next up I have some of these beautiful parsley flowers. Like, did you know you can use a lot of different flowers from herbs in arrangements, like dill for example? And then over here I have some of these Peruvian lilies. So they were just the main flowers that I picked, and here is what I put together. 4 bouquets, which I deliver every Friday morning to Tarmore Garden Centre, where they put them on display at their checkout counter. Steve and Sylvia are really so supportive, full of encouraging words every time I drop them off. Oh, it's just wonderful. This is now week 4 of selling my flowers. I still haven't sold out every week, but I know as word gets out there about Bren's blooms, I'll build up a customer base who may buy these bunches on a regular basis. Do you remember this tomato plant that I showed you back in early spring, which survived all winter? It's growing here up against our north facing wall, so it's getting quite a lot of warmth during the day, and those bricks are really retaining the heat for it to survive during night. Well, it still has tomatoes on it, but a bit of it's looking like a big bit of it is looking like it's dying off. But it's not the end of this plant, and that is because I am going to take some cuttings from it. I'm going to pop them in water, propagate them, and then plant them out in a couple of weeks when roots form. Propagating tomato plants is very easy. There's so many videos out there, but I don't think I've ever mentioned it here before on my channel, so I'll quickly show you how to do it. You get the main stem, and off the main stem there's always these little side shoots that form in here in between the, I don't know the proper names. Anyway, that's the main stem there, and this here is the side sheet. So all you have to do is just like break that off. If I use my finger and thumb, I might just break off easily. Yep, I can hear the snip. See, and what you have there is a bit of the tomato plant that I'm going to put in water, and then down here at the base roots will form in about 2 weeks time, and I'll be able to plant that up and have a fresh healthy plant to continue from this one, which will last all summer. And you never know, I may even be able to get it to last during winter too, so we can keep this plant going and going. It's now ready to pop on a windowsill in our kitchen. I'll show you how it's going next week. I may even take a few more cuttings. Well, it's time for me to head off. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end. I'll see you all again next Friday.